I'm Kerry Fink with Helping Seniors of Brevard, and welcome to Helping Seniors Updates. Today is Wednesday. It's the 12th of August, and the days and weeks just keep moving right along. And we're so honored to have on the Helping Seniors Update today, longtime friend of the Helping Seniors organization. In fact, Bill, you go way back with Joe even before there was a Helping Seniors organization. But it's board certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson. How you doing today, Bill?
I'm doing good.
Good.
How are you, Kerry?
All is good. We just got back from doing a great radio show with Dr. Lee Sheldon, and we were actually talking about pain management today, which is an interesting conversation to have with a person whose career is basically working on people's mouths. But he was explaining to us today on the radio that surprisingly, a lot of times he'll see people come in with mouth issues, and it could actually be related to something else going on in the back or something else. Once they rule out the dental things, he said there's many times that he'll end up referring somebody out, to either physical therapy or something like that. So you learn something every time.
Oh, wow.
It's fascinating. And today I'm excited. We're going to learn something because we're going to talk a little bit about legislative updates and things, because that's really where you kind of have always had so much expertise, as you kind of track down and keep up with things that are moving. And here we are in the middle of COVID. I remember you were talking to us about how now there's some maneuvering room where you guys can do certain signings and things like that via technology and some things like that. So
Right.
pick up and run with it from there.
Okay. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit. We had two guardianship bills that passed. One was Senate Bill 344 that the governor signed into law. And then we had another one that was in response basically to the Forelli case over in Orlando. And that was Senate Bill 994, which the governor also signed into law. The first one basically expanded our ability to not only use doctors in continuing to certify somebody as incapacitated, but now we can expand that to use nurse practitioners or physician's assistants. And it also waives some fees for the public guardian's office. The second one was a little more different. This was, like I said, in response to the guardianship case in Orlando. This one requires guardians now to get a court order to sign a do not resuscitate order. If you remember, that was at the crux of that case. Also, guardians are prohibited, professional guardians, from petitioning for their own appointment. So now somebody else has to do that for them. There are some reporting requirements. We have to report to the court whether or not somebody has a living will, advance directives, do not resuscitate. We also have to report to the court if there was any outside remuneration for the professional guardian. If you recall, in that case, that also involved one of the large hospitals had been paying the lady, and she had also been billing the client allegedly for the same services. So you would have to disclose that to the court. We also had a little bit of a rewrite on the assisted living facility bill. They kind of upgraded what's required as far as training goes and some of the requirements for what assisted living facilities need to do. An interesting bill now allows financial advisors, your stockbroker, to freeze your account if they suspect that there is exploitation going on. Wow. They do have to file a notice and with the Office of Financial Regulation that this is a legitimate, freezing, not just to try and keep the account, but that they actually suspect there is some exploitation, and it waives liability on behalf of the broker. You can't go sue them then. And there are certain requirements and timeframes that come into play, but it does allow them, if they suspect somebody's being taken advantage of, to take some sort of remedial action to prevent that person's assets from being exploited and wasted. Some other ones that are interesting, a lot of times when we have to do probates, we deal with persons who have very small bank accounts. Generally, everything else has a beneficiary on it or is in a trust or is jointly owned and avoids probate. But here they got this one bank account with like $3,000 in it. And they knock on the door and they're like, oh, how do we get a hold of that money? And up until recently, we had no mechanism for that other than doing a probate. And of course, a lot of times the cost of doing the probate was in excess of the amount of money in the account. So banks were having these small accounts that were just staying open forever because nobody wanted to spend the money to probate it, but nobody could get a hold of it. So there is now a mechanism for the bank to get those funds to certain classes of people after 2 years, because that's when creditors' claims expire. And that includes accounts up to $10,000.
Oh, wow.
So it can be a considerable amount of money. And there is a mechanism also to, what the bank has to do and go through before they can release those funds. So if, the bank account is sitting there, say your spouse passed away, but you weren't on the account, you weren't a beneficiary, it wasn't in a trust, and it's just sitting there, there is a way that you can eventually get those funds without having to do a formal administration. So those are some of the more interesting things that have popped up. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the electronic documents. As of July 1st, you can do wills and trusts electronically. After January 1st, we were able to do powers of attorney, healthcare surrogates, living wills, and deeds electronically. So you can actually sign digitally, and those documents can be stored digitally. There is some hoops that have to you have to jump through. And right now I can tell you a lot of people out there are taking courses on how to be an electronic notary, right? Because that is part of what's required. The other thing that's may catch a lot of people off guard is the state, because of this electronic wills and other documents, the state has changed the form for the notary to sign. And that's what it's called, the jurat. And that's where the notary says you personally appeared and you provided, you're either personally known or you provided a driver's license. They fill that out. Well, now that jurat has to have something that says you personally appeared or you electronically appeared. I can tell you that is catching a lot of people, because there are some banks right now who are refusing to honor powers of attorney because the notarization does not have that and does not comply with the statute. And it's actually been the law now in Florida since January 1. So that has caught a lot of people off guard. It wasn't very publicized. I do not know. I have not looked at any document forms that are available through the store or online to see if they have updated their notarization form, but I can tell you it is catching a lot of people. So
that is something we have talked about so many times, the challenges that people face with, I guess, do it yourself or trying to do it yourself attorney work. And I know we've had that conversation that it really, it probably ends up being good business for you, because it takes a lot to undo what they do, but it's probably not good business sense at all for them, because they've just made mistakes that really tie things up and probably cost a lot more to undo than it would have been to just get it done right the first time.
I can tell you about 50% of the documents I see that are either in the form of online service or an actual form that people have bought, about 50% of the time, the execution of the document is done wrong. I have people signing wills who think the witnesses are optional.
Yeah. And the moment that you need these documents, there's probably not a real option to go back and redo them. So you need to get them done the first time. Although I did have a question for you now with this e-document kind of ability. Is that going to make things easier? Because I've heard from a lot of people, like the challenges of if somebody's in an assisted living facility and you can't.
Kerry,
really.
that's a great question because we can't get in the nursing homes, we can't get in the assisted living facilities. However, one of the exclusions for doing these e-docs is that it's not available to a vulnerable adult.
Ah.
Vulnerable adult is defined as somebody who needs help with activities of daily living, which of course is just about going to include everybody at assisted living and everybody at a nursing home.
Wow.
So it's not going to help us in that regard.
So there's a lot of stuff that you have to consider, consider all the way through in all of this. So even though these changes are coming, it still has to be appropriate for the situation that you are working within.
Correct. And it was pushed pretty hard by the real estate folks because they want to do closings long distance.
Mm-hmm.
There is also several different companies that want to do totally online digital documents for people so that, and I guess the thought being, at least with the attorneys in the elder law section, was that it's better for people to have documents than not have them.
Right.
And so even if they're not going to use an attorney, it would be better for them to have at least something. And so that's kind of why we got behind it and put some safeguards in and kind of massage the final product.
Right.
But yeah, it's always much better to have something than nothing.
Right. And I remember too that we were talking too that even though it hasn't really hit a lot of those cases we were just talking about with the assisted livings, you guys through the whole COVID-19 experience have figured out ways to, they may not be the simplest way, but ways to work it. I mean, I remember you telling me about having drive-up signings where people don't have to get out of their car if that's how it works best and things like that.
Yeah, we were doing drive-up signings. My office has changed dramatically. We have a sneeze guard. We clean in between each client. Everybody wears masks. At the facilities, we sometimes are able to get the documents inside and then have the person sign next to a window,
right,
where all the witnesses and the notary can stand outside in the grass, look in and watch the person sign the documents.
Well, and I was thinking about this, at least when, quote, flu season rolls around, I think all these precautions we put in place will probably help us a lot just with general flu and all of that. But it's been amazing because I remember early in this, you and I talked about how you're considered an essential business. And of course, the life of living goes along. So all these situations that create the need for some of these services like probate or just any of the things moving along, they stay, you had to stay up with it.
Well, we looked at the definition of essential business and found that we fell under probably 4 or 5 different categories. We do litigation and we have things that we do that have court order deadlines. So that was one of them. Another one was coordinating elder care. And, we help people get veterans benefits and Medicaid and Medicare benefits. So we fell under that. And there was a few others that we also fell under. So we've stayed open the whole time. It's been slower at times than normal. And, that's mainly because people are taking precautions.
Right. Yeah, everybody's working at somewhat of a reduced capacity. I guess some of the things that stay busy, Kim Bernard, our education specialist, she stays busy with calls coming in, and there's always stuff that is moving forward, even while we try to get through all of the COVID situation and looking for the better day on all of that. I was just going to say, do you have any, well, first of all, I guess a question we should make sure is, since you are open, and we've talked about this so many times, we talked about this on the radio last week, but it's so important to especially maybe if you've moved in from out of state and you're coming in with documents that were prepared someplace else, or God forbid you don't have the right kind of documents for what you're facing or think you might be facing, or just in good general planning, it still makes sense to connect with you. And I think if I remember correctly, people are free to call the office and you'll sit down and at least give them some initial guidance.
Correct. We've always given free consultations, and they can call the office at 253-1667, and that's the 321 area code.
Yeah. And then you also have a website at floridaelderlaw.net. So you can learn more about Bill and the firm. And Bill does so much work, not only in that capacity, but you're also literally kind of like our legislative expert, because just like you were giving us this great update of things going on, you've always got an ear tuned to the ground and seeing what's moving so that we're up to speed on all the things that can benefit seniors in our area.
Well, that comes from being a legislative chair of the elder law section for 4 years. So,
Well, it's good, and we appreciate all that you do. Well, Bill, I guess a couple of things I just want to say before we close out. Joe and I were meeting with the team over at the American Muscle Car Museum because we are looking forward to our October 10th Helping Seniors Car Raffle date. That is definitely the date that we're going to be giving away the car. So that is set in stone. We are waiting to see what the governor's orders are about how many people can be assembled. So we do everything 100% the right way, safely and effectively. Worst case, we would have some sort of a rain delay or COVID delay, I guess would be more appropriate for the event, but we're hoping that we'll be able to manage it. So we're going to actually be meeting next week on that. But we need you to get your tickets. You get your tickets at helpingseniorscarraffle.com. It helps support the work of helping seniors. A ticket is $25 or 5-ticket bundle is $100. And we appreciate your support of the Helping Seniors organization. So with that, Bill, if you have any closing thoughts or anything to kind of wind up as we move along.
Be safe.
That's definitely the right advice. And I was, as kind of a closing comment from this side, I would say we've talked to a lot of people who are in assisted living work, who are in home health care. And the encouraging thing, Bill, that I keep hearing from them is when we do all the right precautions, everything they tell us, the social distancing, all of that, the face masks, the washing the hands, we're able to keep people COVID free. And that seems to be the encouraging part of this. So thanks again, Bill, for clearing your schedule to join us today. And thank you, viewer, for tuning in. We will be back on Friday with the next edition of Helping Seniors Update. So until then, stay safe.
Take care.